ELI5 upon its discovery in the 20th century, why did AIDS spread so rapidly in Africa compared to the rest of the world? One epidemiologist thinks that colonialism in Africa in the early 20th century played a major role. We know that AIDS originated in Africa, because it jumped from chimpanzees to humans, and that's where chimpanzees live. The place where AIDS originated was in the Belgian Congo, and the Belgians were brutal colonial overlords, even by the standards of their time. In the post-colonial period, the area that had been the Belgian Congo, along with a lot of Africa, was very poor. Money is an essential public health tool, and they didn't have it. It's a mix of multiple factors that in the end create the perfect environment for HIV spread. One of the poorest regions in the world, therefore limited access to healthcare, condoms, education about the infection. Another big reason for the high spread of infections like HIV and Ebola are certain parts of their culture that promote the spread of disease, such as having multiple sexual partners at the same time, widespread prostitution, and in the case of Ebola, funeral traditions that include touching of the deceased. It's a bit of a malformed question. It's not that HIV spread rapidly after its discovery. It had been spreading around Africa for decades, and post-World War II had spread globally. The disease can go up to a decade between contracting HIV and developing AIDS. The problem is by the time it was first noticed it had been circulating for decades. There's a highly likely case of AIDS in a child prostitute who died in the 1950s and never traveled outside the US. Mostly the region it spread in first was poor with poor public health. That gave it time to spread before people knew it was there. But even after we identified it, some countries did not implement measures to reduce spread, and local beliefs were, shall we say, unscientific. This allowed more spread even after we knew it was there. Gradually those regions changed some practices that reduced spread. But there is still a lot there. Bill Clinton in the United States descended on South Africa for having the audacity to produce its own AIDS medication. In 1 week over 40 transnational pharmaceutical companies sued the country of Africa for making its own medicine, setting a chain of events that let AIDS sweep over the land. It originated in Africa but wasn't discovered until years later when people in Western countries started dying from it, by which point it had grown exponentially. This is an issue of resources. This was obviously before meds were available, but the same reason is the cause of the higher number of deaths per infected person as well. It spread a lot prior to its discovery, so had lots of paths to spread even after its discovery. Western Christian missionaries had spread anti-gay, anti-women's rights, and anti-birth control rhetoric across much of Africa, so men resisted the use of condoms, cheated on their wives and brought AIDS home, etc. In Rwanda in the mid-90s during the genocide, there were literal rape squads of men with AIDS. 66 of genocide widows tested positive for HIV, and infection rates doubled after the genocide. Let's not forget that some people believed in Africa that AIDS was cured by sleeping with a virgin, which resulted in the spread and raping of many people including children. Isn't the answer sort of obvious? No offense? Less developed medicinal practice and infrastructure plus less education of the risks of STDs within the general populace. I read spillover that one possible explanation is also a massive campaign of vaccination put in place by the civilized world with glass syringes. I'm betting it was spreading before its discovery, and then our limited knowledge about it didn't help us prevent its spread. Then we figured it out. The better question is, if it took years for people to realize there was a new epidemic, how could it realistically have been traced back to Africa? Also, don't discount the role of the Catholic Church. Condoms were forbidden by the Church for a long time. Even when AIDS was absolutely a thing.